Welcome to another session on the concepts of classification of organisms for the first semester BSc Zoology program. And here we are going to discuss on the history of zoological nomenclature. So the origin of an internationally accepted code of rules for zoological nomenclature was initiated in 1758 with the publication of the 10th edition of Systema Naturae by Linnaeus. And in this particular edition, Linnaeus adopted binomial names for species of animals, and later the most important attempt to regulate zoological nomenclature was done or was that by Hugh Strickland, and the rules proposed by Strickland and his colleagues developed into what has been later called British Association Code, or the Stricklandian Code, or the Strickland Code. The code was translated and circulated widely and had great influence, and it was published in France, Italy, and the United States of America. It was received by the Scientific Congress at Padua in 1843, by the American Society of Geologists and Naturalists in 1845, and was adopted by the British Association for the Advancement of Science in 1846. Following the discussion at international congresses of geology, it became clear that there was a need for a formal international agreement to be made for rules to cover all zoological names, irrespective of which bodies or disciplines required to use them, and it should be applicable to both fossils as well as extant animals. Extant animals, that is living animals, okay, against the extinct ones, that is already completely removed, or no members existing or living on the earth presently, that is extinct. And here extant refer to the living ones, okay. So it should include both what you call the name, the nomenclature which has to be brought forward should be applicable to both the fossil animals as well as the extant animals. So at the first International Congress of Zoology, that is International Congress of Zoology at Paris in 1889, the Congress adopted rules drawn up by Maurice Chaper and Raphael Blanchard, not completely but partly alone, but still this referred the matter for discussion at the Second Congress at Moscow in 1892. The Third Congress appointed a commission of 5 zoologists to formulate a code and to report the Fourth Congress with a complete code. Okay, and this was the birth of the present International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature. Following the addition of 10 more members and further consideration, a report was adopted by the Fifth Congress in Berlin in 1901. Okay, and a code of rules embodying the decision of that Congress was published in French, English, and German in 1905. This code, here you can see this code was entitled Regles Internationales de la Nomenclature Zoologique, with a series of amendments or modifications resulting from subsequent congresses in 1907, 1930, 1927, 1930. And it remained in force until 1961. In 1961, this particular code, it was replaced by the first edition of the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. A second edition was published in 1964, which incorporated amendments adopted at Washington in 1963. So there was a meeting in Washington in 1963, and amendments were made to the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, which was first proposed in 1961. Okay. To most zoologists at that time, the 17th International Congress of Zoology in 1972 appeared likely to be the last General Congress of Zoology. Decisions were taken there to amend the second edition, that is what was published in 1964, and in addition to ensure mechanisms for continuity and future updating. A decision was taken to transfer responsibility for the future codes, that is a code of zoological nomenclatures, and the commission from the International Zoological Congresses to the International Union of Biological Sciences. Okay, so there was a shift of responsibility from International Congress for Zoology or International Zoological Congress to International Union of Biological Sciences or IUBS. Okay, responsibility for the code and commission was accepted by International Union of Biological Sciences or IUBS at the 18th IUBS General Assembly in 1973 in response to proposals for major changes to the code made by the community of zoologists at that time, and to eliminate any ambiguity or confusions or missing in clarities, etc. A third edition of the code was prepared and was approved by the Commission with the authority of IUBS in 1983, and it was published in the year 1985. An account of the changes adopted in that edition, comments on proposals, and the Commission's voting were given in the introduction to the particular edition. An editorial committee was later appointed by the Commission in Canberra in October 1988, and proposals were canvassed and discussed at meetings of the Commission and of the IUBS section of Zoological Nomenclature in 1990 at Maryland and in 1991 at Amsterdam, and at meetings of the committee in Leiden 1991 and Hamburg 1993. Following these, a discussion draft was publicly issued in May 1995, and within a year resulted in almost 800 pages of comments from almost 500 sources, and many of which consisted of groups of zoologists. So that was the first, in 1995, the fourth edition. It was released by a forward from the secretary. Then later, the fourth edition completed and came into effect in 1st January 2000. So since 2000, the current edition is being in force, and we can see that the present edition of International Code of Zoological Nomenclature has been in effect from 2000, and later amendments have been made, but still the basic edition, the code, it came up in 2000. So the modern International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, or the ICZN, is a complex integrated document, and in part its complexity results from its network of interdependent articles. The principle, it includes principles adopted in the various previous commissions and meetings. Okay, so this is about the history of International Code of the Zoological Nomenclature, starting from 1758 till 2000. Okay. Now you can see that later there had been a concept of the zoo bank. A zoo bank is actually an official registry for zoological nomenclature according to the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature, that is ICZN. Okay, ICZN is actually the commission, and International Code of Zoological Nomenclature is what actually includes all the principles or rules that has to be followed while naming an animal. Okay, so international and zoo bank, it is the registry, official registry of zoological nomenclature. So what is getting registered? Actually, zoo bank accommodates the registration of 4 different kinds of data. One is nomenclature acts, that is all those acts that govern the ICZN code of nomenclature. And most of these acts are original descriptions of new scientific names for animals. Second is publications that contain nomenclature acts. Then third is the authors, that is anyone who is an author of one or more publications or who is a contributor to the zoo bank content. Okay, zoo bank is actually a registry, we already mentioned, that is it contains a list of a few contents, and it contains certain listing or registering or documenting of certain concepts, and these concepts include the nomenclature acts, publications, authors, and the fourth one, it is a type specimens for scientific names of animals. So the registration of type specimen is considered provisional, and it is not yet fully implemented in zoo bank. Okay, type specimen means when a scientist gives a name for a particular animal or for a particular species, the first time a name is given, that particular species is actually studied in detail with respect to every aspect, and that specimen becomes the type for that particular species. Okay, I hope it is clear. Now, also came into being are the biocode and the phylocode. Uh, Biocode is in general, and phylocode, for each one we have different each what you call uh, branch, we have the different set of codes. Okay, you can see the the most important one, which was a turning point, is the issue of the Strickland code, or publication of the Strickland code, and then came up the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Now, Strickland Code, it was framed, we have already mentioned, it is British Association for the Advancement of Science in 1842, and it formed the basis for all the codes framed later. International Code of Nomenclature, or Uniform Code. Uniform code for all groups of organisms cannot be like accepted, or cannot be like practically made. So like separate codes for different groups of organisms have been used, especially separate codes of nomenclature. Example, we have as international code for botanical nomenclature for plants, international code for uh, zoological nomenclature for animals, international code for code of nomenclature for of bacteria for the bacteria, international code of viral nomenclature for virus. So there are such kind of uh, codes of nomenclature separately for different groups of animals, as a uniform code of nomenclature is not practically applicable for all groups of organisms like. Okay. Regarding the zoology, Professor Raphael Blanchard presented the first set of rules at first International Congress of Zoology in Paris in 1889. We have already mentioned it was in 1889 at Paris, and that was the after the Strickland Code. Group of scientists who came up with the these rules. It was presented by Professor Rafi. So this is regarding the history of international, the zoological nomenclature. Okay.